A lot of you clicking this video are probably confused or experiencing deja vu. No, you are not crazy, you have seen this thumbnail and read this title before. However, you may have noticed that the length of this timeline has doubled. I have gone back and revised the timeline because I realized that there is more that I missed, more so when it comes to the Scorpion King. Some really helpful commenters pointed this out in the comment section of the old timeline, so thank you for correcting me. By the time this video goes up, the old timeline will have been taken down. This is basically a redo. This timeline will follow the rules of the last one. Rather than recapping the films in order of release date, the recaps will be in chronological order to make sense of the film canon. It is important to note that this timeline is very convoluted, and sometimes you have to watch films between other films to understand it. This timeline will not include the TV series. Perhaps I will cover the Mummy TV shows in the future, but for now I'm sticking to the film canon. Before I start, I should apologize for the microphone quality changing. I'm using clips with the audio from my old mic as well as clips with audio from my new one, so there will be a drop in quality in some areas. I also want to give credit to the Redditor Silent Dudes whom I used as a reference for the Scorpion King part of the timeline. Without them, I wouldn't have realized that there was a set order to watch the films in. And again, thank you to those in the previous comment section of my last video who pointed out the flaws and things that I had missed. One last thing, I have noticed a lot of video recommendations in the comment sections of my videos. I am more than happy to do videos on whatever you guys like or are interested in. I would just suggest heading over to my Instagram to tell me there, since I'm not very active in the comment section of my YouTube. I often miss things, so feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram. With that out of the way, let's start the video. This timeline begins with the Scorpion King, notably the second film in the Scorpion King franchise, Scorpion King: Rise of a Warrior. The film is set during the Akkadian Empire a few years before 3067 BC, though the exact year is unclear. Akkad is protected by a group of warriors called the Black Scorpions. Amongst them is a man named Asher, who is considered the best of the Black Scorpions. Asher has a son named Matthias, who he refuses to allow to compete for the honor of joining the Black Scorpions. But on the day of the trials, Matthias sneaks out to compete. He is there with 24 other boys who must prove they are worthy through combat. If they succeed, they will leave the capital city of Nipah for 6 years to train and then return as fully fledged Black Scorpions. During the trials, things go badly for Matthias when he tries to defend his friend. Matthias's father has to intervene in order to save him, but this goes against the code of the Black Scorpion and enrages the king's general and fellow Black Scorpion, Sargon. Sargon tries to arrest Matthias and Asher, but King Hammurabi intervenes and pardons Asher since the warrior is a great asset to their empire. However, he still sends Matthias to join the Black Scorpions. Sargon is enraged by this, so a few nights before Matthias is sent away, Sargon sends a magical black cloud to Matthias's home that kills Asher in his sleep. Matthias witnesses his father's death, and though he has no proof, he knows Sargon is responsible. Soon after, Matthias leaves the city to train. After 6 years, he returns to the capital city officially as a Black Scorpion. He is greeted by his mother and his younger brother Noah. He is also reunited with his childhood friend Layla. It is during this little reunion that Matthias discovers that Sargon has become the new king after having allegedly killed the former king Hammurabi. And this is when it clicked in my head that the Sargon of this film is meant to be Sargon the Great, or Sargon of Akkad, the founder of the Akkadian Empire, and that this king Hammurabi is supposed to be the actual king of the old Babylonian Empire, which doesn't make any sense at all. It is true that Hammurabi and Sargon both came from the Mesopotamian region, however Hammurabi's dynasty came 500 years after Sargon's, so there is no way both men could have been alive during the same time.
That just makes no fucking sense.
I hate to sound like a nerd, but I thought it was something I had to bring up. Something else I'd like to mention is that Matthias calls his mother Mum in one scene.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I'm no linguist or etymologist, but I'm pretty sure people alive during the Mesopotamian era did not call their mothers mum. Okay, I'll shut up now. Back to the timeline. Now that Sargon is king, he commands Matthias to join him in the palace one evening. Matthias still hasn't forgotten about his father and still suspects that Sargon may have been responsible, but still he goes to the palace as he cannot deny his king. When Matthias enters, he finds Sargon there with his royal guards, an additional and more extreme branch of the Black Scorpions. The atmosphere is tense, but Sargon surprisingly grants Matthias a place in his king's guard and gives him rewards before dismissing him for the night. Unfortunately, Sargon's goodwill is short-lived because the next morning Matthias is given his first task. As a test of loyalty, he is told to kill his own brother Noah, who had been slandering Sargon's name by insinuating that Sargon had killed King Hammurabi. Matthias almost looks as if he's about to do it, but it's nothing more than a ruse to buy Noah some time to escape.
You've disgraced my father's name.
Matthias takes out the royal guards and then tries to kill Sargon, but he fails because Sargon uses dark magic to defend himself. Seeing that Sargon cannot be killed by normal means, Matthias and Noah rush out of the palace and try to flee the city. They do make it out of the city gates, but Noah is killed by an enchanted arrow sent by Sargon. This sets Matthias on yet another path for revenge. With the knowledge that Sargon dabbles in the dark arts, Matthias hatches a plan to board a ship in Egypt and find the spear of Osiris to kill him. On his journey there, he discovers Layla had been following him. Layla isn't the only one to join Matthias on his journey. He and Layla become acquainted with a Greek poet named Ari. Ari tells them that the spear of Osiris will not work against Sargon, as it only kills Egyptian monsters. Put a pin in that, because the spear of Osiris will come back later as a continuity error. Ari urges them to find the sword of Damocles instead, which is kept in the underworld. The trio make their way to the supposed entrance of the underworld, which is located in the labyrinth of Kenos. But instead of finding the underworld, they are caught in a cell and almost sacrificed to a minotaur that stalks the labyrinth. They are able to overcome the minotaur, which leads Matthias and his party to join up with a group of mercenaries called the Fellowship of Pollux. Now Matthias, Ari, Layla, and the mercenaries join to the underworld, entering it successfully. They come across the Swamp of the Dead as well as Asarate, the god of love and war. She guards the sword and tries to lead Matthias astray. Matthias nearly folds and almost loses Layla in the process, but he rejects Astarate's advances. He and his friends acquire the sword and leave the underworld. With the sword in his possession, Matthias finally faces Sargon and manages to finally defeat him. With Sargon gone, Nipper receives a new king and Matthias leaves the city in search of a new adventure. The next film in the timeline is The Scorpion King 2002. After the defeat of Sargon, Matthias wanders the Mesopotamian region for many years, growing older while the world has changed. By the time Matthias reaches the age of what I'm assuming to be late 20s or early 30s, the Akkadian Empire has fallen, with most Akkadians having been wiped out. The few that remain are Matthias, his brother, and another man who's a part of Matthias' group who I'm assuming is also Akkadian. If you're wondering, the brother Matthias has in this film is neither Noah nor is he Enenki, the off-screen brother for the second Scorpion King film. I didn't feel it was necessary to mention him because he is not present in the film aside from his name being mentioned once. Matthias' brother in this film is Jessup. If you are confused, so am I, but stay with me. As I said before, the world has changed. A new ruler has taken over and dominated most of the land. A warrior named Memnon who has assumed the role of king and is slowly conquering the Mesopotamian regions with the help of his sorcerer who can see the future. Side note, I'm unsure whether this film's Memnon is meant to be the fictional hero of Greek and Roman mythology, or if he's a completely different man who just happens to have the same name. But either way, he is about to conquer most of the region. Despite Memnon's reign, some oppose him. One night, a meeting is called by King Pharaoh. He gathers the last of the free tribes who haven't been overcome by Memnon and deliberates on ways to defeat him. That's when Matthias and his party arrive and offer to kill the sorcerer and eliminate Memnon in exchange for blood rubies. A deal is hatched between King Pharaoh and the Akkadians, and Matthias and his party travel to Memnon's camp the following night. They use the cover of darkness to infiltrate the area and begin sneaking around to find the sorcerer, but their efforts are squandered. Memnon had been anticipating their arrival and set a trap. Out of the trio, Matthias' brother is captured and their nameless friend is killed, but Matthias continues with the plan and eventually finds the sorcerer. But it turns out the sorcerer is a sorceress and a beautiful one. She isn't afraid of Matthias and addresses him by his name, telling him that he has been betrayed.
You know my name?
And why you're here.
This causes Matthias to hesitate and he too is captured. Once captured, he comes face to face with Memnon, who reveals that Matthias was betrayed by King Pharaoh's son. While Matthias is incapacitated, Memnon kills Jessup and is about to do the same to Matthias, but the sorceress intervenes and tells him that it's not his time to die. Rather than kill Matthias, Memnon orders his men to take him away, but not before knocking him out. The next day, Matthias wakes up, sand up to his neck. His entire body, excluding his head, has been buried in the sand, where he waits for ants to eat him alive slowly. He is there with another man suffering a similar fate. The man's name is Apred, but he escapes easily, frees Matthias, and joins him on his mission to kill Memnon and the sorceress. Meanwhile, Memnon and his sorceress predict an upcoming battle where he is expected to win. He tells the sorceress that once he eliminates the remaining tribes and finishes his campaign, he will marry her. However, this comes with a disadvantage. Cover your ears if you're a child, but it turns out that if the sorceress beds a man, she loses the power to see into the future, as well as her other magical abilities. The sorceress asks Memnon if that's what he truly wants, but he assures her that he will no longer need her powers once he defeats all his enemies. We switch back to Apred and Matthias. They have traveled to the city of Gomorrah where Memnon currently resides. Any Christians or people who are interested in theology watching this will recognize Gomorrah as the wicked city mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, that was destroyed after being a pretty vile place. Matthias and Apred sneak into the city. Apred watches the camels while Matthias finds a way into the palace with the help of a street child. While sneaking around, Matthias and the street child stumble across Philos, an old man who specializes in science. He creates inventions for Memnon, but Philos isn't exactly fond of the warlord and snitches by telling Matthias exactly where he can find him, which is in the courtyard. Matthias sneaks out to the rooftop where he intends to kill Memnon with an arrow, but stops when a castle guard captures the street child. Matthias abandons his plan to kill Memnon and saves the child instead. This alerts the guard to his presence, and Matthias has to flee. As Matthias is trying to escape the palace, he finds himself in Memnon's harem. This is when I realized that the Scorpion King is much wilder than I remember as a kid, or perhaps I just wasn't paying attention. Matthias escapes the harem only to fall into another awkward situation. He falls through the roof and lands directly in front of the sorceress who is bathing. Why my parents allowed me to watch this as a kid, I'll never know. He takes her hostage and escapes the city, meeting Apred outside. Then they make their way to the Valley of the Dead. During the night, the sorceress tries to escape but fails, so instead she strikes up a conversation with Matthias. She explains that she has no love for Memnon. Basically, he kidnapped her when she was a kid and gradually developed feelings for her, which makes Memnon a whole lot worse and a whole lot creepier. She also goes on to explain that she kept Matthias alive during the trap because she could foresee that he was going to free her. Matthias does end up freeing her because he pities her, but the sorceress ultimately decides to stay with him and Apred. The next day, Memnon's men have tracked Matthias down, hoping to kill him and get the sorceress back, but Matthias takes care of them one by one. However, he is pierced by a poisonous arrow that Memnon had laced with scorpion venom. The poison begins to enter his system, and at night, Apred and the sorceress work hard to save him. She uses her magic to save him, and the next morning Matthias wakes up. He's healed from the poison, but it remains in his body. And this starts one of the many continuity discrepancies behind the name of the Scorpion King. Basically, each film has a reason for why Matthias is called the Scorpion King, but none of them seem to mesh well, and it always changes. Matthias, Apred, and the sorceress continue their trek through the desert until they come across Philos. He had escaped and is now living in the desert, testing out his experiments. He joins their trio and they eventually find an oasis, but they are ambushed and captured by Balthazar's people and brought back to their village. Balthazar is the leader of one of the free tribes. He's seen at the start of the film and he's very distrustful towards Matthias. Balthazar tries to kill Matthias but comes to an agreement with him since they have a common enemy. They allow Matthias and his friends to stay. During their stay, the sorceress has a vision that Memnon finds them and kills everyone in the village. Oh, and before I go on, I have to clarify, the sorceress does have a name. It's Cassandra. I had just forgotten it and I'm too lazy to redo the script entirely. So for the rest of the video, I'll refer to her as Cassandra. Cassandra tells Matthias about her vision and shows him another vision where Matthias faces Memnon but dies. Matthias assures her that he will not die, and then they sleep together, which we all saw coming. After their lovemaking, Matthias sleeps and Cassandra uses this time to escape the oasis. She steals a camel and returns to Memnon. Matthias realizes that she's left in the morning to save the tribespeople. He decides to go after her as well as get rid of Memnon. Balthazar accompanies him with a few of his own warriors as well as Apred and the scientists. Matthias and his friends reach the city and sneak in. They begin their attack on Memnon's palace. As this is happening, Memnon becomes suspicious of Cassandra. He finds out that she's lost her ability to see the future and this angers him. Hi, this is post-editing Crespo, and in my last timeline video, or like the old one, I said that Cassandra would lose her ability to see into the future if she had bedded a man. That's actually not the case. She could still see into the future, even after she had, relations. She only claimed that she would lose such an ability so that men wouldn't take advantage of her and so that, Memnon wouldn't try anything. So yeah, I just thought I should clarify that. Thank you for everyone who told me in the comment section of the last video. But luckily, Matthias arrives just in the nick of time to save her.
Come for the woman and your head.
Matthias and Memnon begin their final confrontation. As their fight continues, Cassandra's vision begins to manifest, but of course, since Matthias is the main character, he defies fate and kills Memnon. After the battle, Matthias becomes the leader of Gomorrah and all of Memnon's conquered kingdoms. After The Scorpion King 2002, the next film in the timeline should be Scorpion King 3 Battle for Redemption. It is, but it also isn't. What I mean by that is that the prologue of Scorpion King 3 should be followed up by the Scorpion King 5 Book of Souls and then Scorpion King 4 Quest for Power, rather than actually watching the entirety of film 3. The events in films 4 and 5 happen after the prologue of Battle for Redemption, but before the actual post-prologue events of the Scorpion King 3. It's very confusing, but that's the order it goes in to grasp the timeline of events. So onto the prologue of Scorpion King 3. Matthias, since we last saw him, has lost his kingdom and his wife. A sickness swept over Gomorrah and it killed many people, including Cassandra. After such a loss, Matthias decides to just give up being the Scorpion King and he leaves the city to become a blacksmith.
Matthias, the once mighty Scorpion King, has lost his empire and his beloved queen.
This film takes place in multiple locations, such as a few unnamed Mesopotamian places, Nubia, and Egypt, but more so Egypt. This was centuries ago and before the time of the pharaohs. We're given a prologue about a king named Memtep who made a deal with Anubis to create a powerful sword that would help him take over the world. We'll talk more about Anubis later and his relevancy to this whole entire canon and film lore. The sword was called the Fang of Anubis. Memtep used the sword to conquer the world, and when he died he buried the sword in his tomb. We are then taken to the current day, but I'm not exactly sure what the year is. A man named Nebseric finds the sword after searching for it for a while, and uses it to quickly take over the lands. Other than conquering the lands, he also wants to kill the last Akkadian and the only person who can stop him, aka Matthias.
Nebseric went forth, sweeping across the barren lands with the Fang of Anubis at his command. But one enemy eluded him, the last Akkadian.
The film is essentially filler. It doesn't affect the canon, and if you skip this film you wouldn't be missing much, but I'll summarize. As I said before, Matthias ceases to be the Scorpion King. He now lives in a random village as a blacksmith. He's given up the warrior's lifestyle and is living a relatively peaceful life. But that doesn't last long because he is being hunted by Nebseric. This film is a grand battle between Nebseric and Matthias. The key things that happen are that Matthias joins forces with Balthazar's daughter, who is named Tala. Remember Balthazar from the last film? You know him? The two embark on a journey to the Valley of the 13th Moon to find the Book of Souls, not to be mistaken with the Book of the Dead. The Book of Souls is the only way to destroy the Fang of Anubis. The two find the valley and the temple which holds the book, but they don't find an actual book. What they find is a woman who has hidden engravings on her skin. Her name is Amina, and she is quite literally the book, as well as Memtep's daughter.
You are the Book of Souls.
Matthias later comes to find out that the only way to destroy the Fang of Anubis is to destroy the Book of Souls, so they have to kill Amina. In the end, they stop and kill Nebseric and end his little reign of terror, but Amina is inevitably killed so the sword can be destroyed. This takes us to Scorpion King 4, Quest for Power. In this little unnecessary filler adventure of a film, Matthias has returned to his mercenary roots, and he's even gotten himself a new partner called Drazen. Matthias and Drazen are raiding a palace in search of a magical artifact, an urn of some kind. They were sent to retrieve this urn as a favor for a king named Zakur. However, when they get the urn, Drazen betrays Matthias and delivers the urn to Zakur's rival, King Yannick, the ruler of Navania.
You're everything your legend foretold, Scorpion King.
You're betraying me.
I followed you long enough. You see, I have bigger ambitions than just being a warrior.
And this is why I work alone.
Inside the urn is a key, the golden key of Alchemon, which is supposed to lead to a secret palace that hides a throne and a magical crown. Whoever wears the crown will unlock some kind of magical ability and ascend to be the king of the world. Like the last film, this one is meaningless fluff, and I'll be skimming through the plot, but I just want to highlight something before I do so. Something is going on between Matthias and Drazen. There's an underlying sexual tension between the two.
Followed you for a year. Think of what we've been through together, huh? We're a team.
Okay.
Put that's your knife in your pocket.
Wait.
I don't think it was intentional, but it is there if you watch the film, and I can't unsee it now that I've watched the film. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I don't know, you tell me if you happen to watch the film. So what actually happens in this movie? Well, it's the usual. Matthias meets a group of people who help him in his quest to stop a tyrant from reaching ultimate power through some sort of magical MacGuffin. The tyrant in this case is Drazen, who is dramatic and campy.
And you are a pig, Drazen.
Oink, oink. Liar! This man is an assassin and he wanted my father's throne.
You and I are going to have a cup of tea.
But not as campy as Billy Zane's villain.
North Vale, Den of A. The Book of the Dead already courses through my body. I don't need this trinket.
We'll get to that later. And Matthias' party members in this case are a woman named Valina and her father Sorel. Along the way, Matthias wears a dress, but that's neither here nor there. Eventually, he finds the throne and the crown, and he rids Norvania of Drazen. Matthias, Valina, and Soren steal the crown away to ensure the wrong person never gets it, and Zelina becomes queen. With the mission done, Matthias leaves Norvania and continues on with his mercenary ways, which means we can now return to the Scorpion King 3. Matthias is still on his mercenary grind set, but he's kind of just lost his will to live. This leads him to take a job which is essentially a suicide mission for the King Horus. You see, King Horus has a problem. His younger brother Talus has an army, and with this army he is marching to a palace that belongs to another king named Ramesson. Ramesson is Horus's ally and the protector of the Book of the Dead. Yes, that Book of the Dead, the powerful Egyptian artifact that contains spells from the old world. This is the book's first canonical appearance in the Scorpion King and Mummy universe, and it will come up a lot later. Talus intends to use the book to obtain ultimate power and overthrow his brother. What's new? Matthias has to stop him, and this is basically the premise of the film. This film isn't as boring or bad as the last two, it's not great by any means, but it is made bearable by Billy Zane's campy and rather sassy performance.
I feel something too light. Feel this kingdom is mine.
I am a benevolent, highly entertaining woman. Now that the sword is unsheathed, it is time to pierce the flesh.
That man should be arrested immediately.
I can't tell if he loved or hated being in this film. Ron Perlman is also in this film, so I think that's kind of a plus. But back to the actual plot of the film. Matthias sets off on yet another grand adventure. He is accompanied by one of the king's men, a guy named Olaf. Olaf is alright. The two of them make their way to Ramesson's palace and help him fight off Talus's men. After successfully keeping them away, Ramesson offers his daughter Silda, the princess, as a reward for Matthias. Matthias only accepts because of the necklace the princess is wearing. The necklace is the Eye of the Gods medallion, and it's quite important in the film's canon. However, Matthias can't exactly marry Silda right away or claim this necklace, because she is currently Talus's prisoner. So now, Matthias not only has to defeat Talus, but save Silda as well. Matthias and Olaf sneak into Talus's camp to get Silda back. However, they aren't the only ones trying to get her. Silda is taken by a group of ninjas who work for the elusive resistance leader, Cobra. Cobra is fighting against Talus as well, and is leading their own guerrilla military group, but they mistake Matthias for the enemy. Matthias isn't able to get Silda back, and Talus finds him and Olaf. But as luck would have it, Talus does not realize he's speaking to the Scorpion King, and misinterprets him fighting Cobra's men as a sign that they are on the same side. Talus offers Matthias money to get Silda back and take out Cobra once and for all. Matthias takes the money and seemingly just switches sides. Matthias and Olaf find Cobra, or rather, Cobra finds them. They are taken back to Cobra's camp, where the resistance leader is revealed to be none other than Silda. Silda explains that she had allowed herself to be kidnapped by Talus to go undercover. Talus had stolen her medallion and she was on the cusp of getting it back, had it not been for Matthias arriving at the wrong time. I mentioned that the medallion is an important artifact earlier. This is because it can be used in conjunction with the book, and we'll see how later. But anyways, Matthias is so done by this point and decides to just leave. But Silda tries to get him to help their cause. She states that the people of her kingdom need the Scorpion King.
Woman, I'm a soldier of fortune. How can I possibly help?
There's much you can do. After all, you are the great Scorpion King.
But Matthias hits her with a brooding look and tells her that he isn't that man anymore. Without Matthias' help, Ramesson loses the book to Talus, so now Talus has both the book and the medallion, and he uses them both to summon Dave Bautista and Kimbo Slice.
What?
He actually uses it to summon 3 spirit warriors from the Book of the Dead to act as his protectors.
My lord, I am Zulu Kondo. I am Tiger Bell. Noble destroyer.
What mortal dares to awaken the warriors of the book?
He uses the medallion to control them, and now he's more powerful than ever. Meanwhile, Matthias ends up coming around to Silda and agrees to help once more in the fight against Talus. He overcomes his past grief of losing his wife and kingdom, and Silda, Olaf and their army fight back against Talus. They get rid of the warriors from the book, Billy Zane is killed in a comedic fashion, Matthias marries Silda as promised, and he is once again Scorpion King. Now this leads us to the prologue of the second Mummy movie and the time between films. It's 3067 BC.
Post-edit Crespo. Again, I cannot use my actual voice, so pardon this voice. I forgot to mention that this Matthias is not the original. He is Matthias III. He looks exactly like the first Matthias, but he's nothing like his grandfather. He is not a heroic warrior. He is just evil. To clarify once more, this is not the original Matthias. I hope this clears up some misconceptions.
All you need to know is that Matthias is evil. We see him invading Thebes. His efforts to take over the world fail and his army perishes. Matthias nearly passes as well, but he pleads with the god Anubis to save him in exchange for his soul. Matthias asks the god to help him conquer his enemies, and Anubis obliges him. The Egyptian god grants Matthias his bracelet and gives him the ability to command his army. However, when Matthias has reached his goal, Anubis claims his soul as promised and takes back his army and the bracelet. Anubis takes away the warrior's soul and transforms him into a scorpion-like creature who can only be awakened once every 5,000 years. Matthias' chapter is temporarily closed and the timeline gives way to a new villain. The timeline continues in 1290 BC in ancient Egypt. The current reigning pharaoh is King Seti I. He has a mistress called Anaxunamun who is about to become his wife. The pharaoh's daughter Nefertiti is not fond of Anaxunamun and suspects that something is going on between her and her father's high priest Imhotep. Nefertiti is proven to be right and Anaxunamun is having an affair with Imhotep. Anaxunamun is caught but she kills Seti I and then kills herself. Imhotep tries to resurrect Anaxunamun with the Book of the Dead but is stopped by the Magi, who is the royal guard for the pharaoh and essentially Egypt's secret service. The Magi then curse Imhotep with the Homdai. It is a curse where a person is mummified alive, their tongue is cut off and they are buried with scarabs which eat them alive slowly. But there are some disadvantages. Should a victim of the Homdai arise, they will bring about the 10 plagues of Egypt, gain supernatural abilities, and eventually spread their darkness over the world. After Imhotep is cursed, he is buried deep beneath the city of Hamunaptra, waiting and watching, much like the Scorpion King. As things cool down in Egypt, China is experiencing its own troubles with tyrannical leaders. In 200 BC, an emperor rules over the country with an iron fist. He is a tactical genius, an amazing warrior, and he dabbles in the dark arts. He also had slaves and peasants build the Great Wall of China. However, despite the emperor's efforts to gain power, he fears that his legacy will be gone once he is dead. So he seeks out immortality so he can rule forever. He seeks out a witch named Zhu Yan. The witch tells him she does not know how to make him immortal, but she knows where to find the spell that holds the key to his immortality. The emperor allows her to leave and entrusts her with his general, General Ming, but not before telling him that no man is allowed to touch Zhu Yan. Zhu Yan and the general travel to the monastery of Turpin where there is a library. There they find the Oracle Bones, which is a collection of secrets and spells from the old world. While there, Zhu Yan and General Ming begin a secret relationship. They travel back to the emperor. He is pleased and grants Zhu Yan anything she desires, but when she tells him she wants to spend her life with General Ming, the emperor is upset by this. But he agrees. He then tells her to read from the Oracle Bones to grant him eternal life, and she begins to cast a spell. Once the spell is read, the emperor seemingly feels immortal. But rather than honoring his promise, he has General Ming killed and stabs Zhu Yan. However, Zhu Yan has the last laugh. It turns out the spell she was casting was a curse, and rather than giving him immortality, she turns the emperor and his army into clay warriors, making them terracotta warriors. Zhu Yan flees and the emperor and his army are buried underground in a tomb, waiting to be awakened. While 3 mummies wait to be awakened, the world keeps spinning. Centuries pass and the world moves out of the ancient era and comes into the 20th century. We move on to the next film of the timeline. The year is 1923 and a garrison of French legions is trying to invade the ruins of Hamunaptra, but they are forced into battle with Tuareg warriors. Amongst the French soldiers are an American named Rick O'Connell and a Hungarian man named Benny Gabor. Nearly all the French soldiers are killed, but Benny escapes by abandoning Rick. Rick also escapes, but not before feeling a supernatural presence in the ruins. As Rick wanders through the desert, the Magi watches him. They are still guarding Imhotep to this day. 3 years later, in 1926, Evelyn, a young half-Egyptian woman who works at a library, is approached by her brother Jonathan. He is a conman and a treasure hunter. He offers his sister a puzzle box but omits the fact that he has stolen it. The puzzle box is ancient and contains a map. Jonathan believes it is valuable. He is proven to be right when Evelyn figures out that the map could lead them to the city of Hamunaptra. Hamunaptra, as you know, is where Imhotep is currently buried, but it is also considered to be where all the wealth of Egypt is housed. But Evelyn is more concerned with the Book of Amun-Ra, or the Book of the Living, which also may be in Hamunaptra. Evie and Jonathan decide to pursue the idea of finding Hamunaptra. When Jonathan and Evie inquire about the box, Evie discovers that Jonathan had stolen it. Rick and Evie meet, and there is a spark of attraction between the two of them. Rick agrees to take them to the City of the Dead, but they aren't the only ones traveling there. The trio runs into a group of Americans who Benny is leading to Hamunaptra. Both groups travel to the city, but many things go awry once they begin digging. Many people are killed via ancient booby traps, and the Magi almost force both groups to leave. But despite all odds, both groups stay in Hamunaptra and find their own sorts of treasure. Well, kind of. Evelyn and co find a mummy. Little do they know it's Imhotep. The Americans find a chest and a book, but it's not the Book of Amun-Ra, rather it's the Book of the Dead. However, before finding the book, the group reads a warning engraved on the chest.
Death will come on swift wings to whomsoever opens this chest. He will kill all who open this chest and assimilate their organs and fluids. And in so doing, he will regenerate and no longer be the undead.
The Americans don't take the curse seriously, but Benny does and runs away before the chest is opened. Say what you want about Benny, but this is probably the smartest thing he has ever done. Once the chest is open, half of the curse begins. The other half of the curse is consummated when Evie reads from the book and unknowingly awakes Imhotep. When Imhotep awakens, he does exactly what the curse foretold. He attacks one of the Americans to regenerate, and this causes the remaining survivors to flee Hamunaptra. Imhotep begins to regenerate, growing stronger as he kills off the people who opened the chest. As his powers grow, he brings about the plagues of Egypt, but he doesn't stop there. He plans to bring back Anak-Sunamun by using Evelyn as a human sacrifice. With the threat of Imhotep looming over the world, the Magi and Rick's crew team up to stop him. Unfortunately, Imhotep regenerates fully, kidnaps Evelyn, and brings her back to Hamunaptra to begin the sacrifice. Jonathan and the Magi race back to Hamunaptra to save Evie. They find the Book of Amun-Ra while there, and they use it to strip Imhotep of his powers and make him a mortal man. They kill him and then cast him into the Pit of Souls, but not before he whispers, "Death is only the beginning." I'm sure those words won't mean anything. Anyway, the timeline continues with the second Mummy film in the year 1993. Rick and Evie are married and still living the adventurous lifestyle, with the addition of their young son, Alex. In their most recent adventure, Evie and Rick find themselves raiding a temple in Thebes, messing around once again and showing that they haven't learned their lesson since the first film. Though the reason for their meddling is different this time. Evelyn has been having reoccurring dreams about the temple. The place feels familiar to her. Rick doubts Evelyn's claims, but he starts to believe her since she knows her way around the place. As they explore the temple, their annoying spawn, their son Alex, is waiting outside and building rat traps. I have to warn you, I may complain about this film a little. I don't think it's as good as the first film, but it's still a classic. I think it's just the kid I don't like. Anyways, Alex is outside the temple when he hears 3 men approaching. He hides and overhears one of the men state menacingly that he's going to sort out the O'Connells. As this is happening, Evelyn and Rick walk towards a door, and Evie has a vision of an ancient room with a box of some kind, which is then locked with a key by a woman. Before Evelyn can see who the woman is, Rick disrupts the vision, leaving Evelyn puzzled. However, the vision ends up helping her because she is shown how to unlock the secret door. The room they enter contains a chest with the crest of the Scorpion King. Given her historical knowledge, Evie recognizes the crest. The two open the chest and find Anubis's bracelet. Unfortunately, after finding the artifact, the place begins to flood, but luckily they are saved by Alex. The little adventure leaves the O'Connells slightly shaken, so they return to their home in London. By the way, Alex does not inform his parents about the trio who are after them, which is something he should definitely mention since it's important, but screw it I suppose. The men who are after the O'Connells are a trio of thieves called Spivey, Red, and Jacques. After the flooding of the temple, the men make their way to Hamunaptra, where a dig is taking place. The dig is being led by Baltus Hafez, the curator of the British Museum and a close friend of the O'Connells, but they have no idea he is working against them. With Baltus is a warrior named Lochner and a woman called Mila who is supposed to be the reincarnation of Anck-su-namun. The thieves tell Baltus they were unable to acquire the bracelet and that the O'Connells have it. This puts a spanner in the works for Balta and Mila, who are determined to get the artifact. Why, you ask? Well, it's because they need it for a plan that involves the Scorpion King and Imhotep. That's right, Imhotep is being resurrected again, but this time on purpose. Mila and Baltus plot to go to London and take the bracelet back from the O'Connells. Little do they know their plans are being overheard by Ardeth Bay, who's sneaking around the dig site. I didn't mention this before, but Ardeth Bay is one of the Magi in the last film. I think he is the leader of the Magi, and I'm really glad he came back for the second film. As both Ardeth and Baltus race to get to England, the O'Connells resettle in their London mansion. Evie speculates that the bracelet is a guide to the lost oasis of Amshur. If you remember correctly, early Matthias had asked Anubis to save his life. What I had forgotten to mention is that Anubis had done so by giving him power through the bracelet, and by creating an oasis where Matthias could replenish his energy. The oasis would become the oasis of Amshur. It has a golden pyramid in its center, and it is the resting place for Matthias and Anubis' army. It is hidden from most of the world, and no one has ever found it. Additionally, the 5,000-year mark where the Scorpion King can be awakened is approaching. As Evie continues to speculate the validity of the artifact, Alex fiddles with the chest that contains the bracelet. Rick and Evie are so distracted they don't notice Alex opening the chest, causing the bracelet to latch onto his arm and project the path to Amshur in front of him. They also don't notice that Jonathan has been squatting in their house, bringing women over while they are away. He's also been stealing his sister's artifacts and treasure, which leads me to clarify something. One of the things that Jonathan stole from his sister is the Spear of Osiris. I mentioned the Spear of Osiris earlier as an item that was almost used to kill Sargon. Remember that guy? Well, it wasn't used against him in the end because the spear only works on Egyptian monsters. But the spear doesn't only appear in the Scorpion King. It appears in the first Mummy film. It was in Hamunaptra and found by Benny. Benny had taken the spear and thrown it into a sack alongside other stolen treasure. He took the sack outside and left it beside his getaway camel before going back in the ruins for more treasure. However, Benny never makes it out and he dies in the ruins, leaving the sack outside for Evie, Jonathan, and Rick to find. The trio had split the treasure and Evie took the spear, but Jonathan stole it in this film and was waving it around like it was a toy. This is both good and bad. Eventually, Baltus, Mila, and Lochner reach London. They break into the O'Connells' home, demanding the bracelet of Anubis and the Spear of Osiris. But luckily, Ardeth arrives around the same time and helps Evie and her family fight off the intruders. During the scuffle, Evie gains the ability to fight despite having no prior training. Baltus is unable to get the Spear of Osiris. He does, however, kidnap Evie and takes with him the chest, believing that the bracelet is still inside. He and his goons flee the mansion and go to the British Museum, leaving Jonathan, Alex, and Ardeth behind. Rick is confused and devastated that Evie has been taken away, but Ardeth assures him that they will get her back. He also explains what is happening. He tells them about Baltus's plan to awaken Imhotep, give him the bracelet to find the oasis, challenge the Scorpion King, and then claim the army of Anubis. Ardeth stresses the importance of not letting either the Scorpion King or Imhotep arise again.
Now that the bracelet is on his wrist, we have only 7 days before the Scorpion King awakens. What we? If he is not killed, he will raise the army of Anubis. I take it that's not a good thing.
Rick, Jonathan, Alex, and Ardeth prepare to rescue Evie. As they are inspecting their weapons arsenal, Ardeth notices a tattoo on Rick's arm. It's the mark of the Magi, which can only mean one thing. Ardeth tells Rick he is supposed to be a Magi, and then later on in the film tells him that he is a reincarnation of a god who is meant to protect Evie. And this is where I have to pause and talk about the craziness of The Mummy Returns. Reincarnation is a big part of this movie. 3 characters in this film are reincarnations, 2 of which I don't mind. But Rick? Seriously? Rick too? Rick as a reincarnated Magi never made sense to me as a kid, and it doesn't make sense to me now. Firstly, the mark of the Magi is never once shown in the first film, nor is the concept ever built up. We never see it on Rick's arm. In fact, in the first film, Rick spends the majority of the time being at odds with the Magi.
That mark means you're a protector of man, a warrior for God, a Magi.
Back to the plot of the movie. At the British Museum, Evelyn has been tied up and is watching as Baltus brings Imhotep back to life. Imhotep awakens and meets the people responsible for waking him up, particularly taking note to Mila. When Evelyn sees Mila, she is overcome with the same sense of familiarity she had in Thebes. Evelyn watches as the woman approaches Imhotep. She tells the newly awakened Imhotep that she is the reincarnated version of Anck-su-namun, but Imhotep replies only physically and vows to return her soul to her body. Which is sort of romantic if you think about it. Centuries have gone by and this man still hasn't stopped loving her. With Imhotep awake, Baltus decides it's time to give him the bracelet, but when he opens the chest they find a baseball statue which Alex had swapped with the bracelet. Baltus promises he will get the bracelet back, and in the meantime, Mila suggests they take out Evie by throwing her into fire. Evelyn nearly bites the dust, but of course, Rick saves her before she gets cooked. A fight breaks out in the British Museum. The O'Connells, Jonathan and Ardeth are all able to escape, but as they are fleeing via a double-decker bus, Alex is snatched by Lochner and taken away, effectively giving the bad guys the bracelet they wanted. Imhotep and his servants leave London and travel to Egypt. Once they arrive in the country, they use a steam train to get around. Imhotep demands that Alex help them find the oasis. He warns the child there will be dire consequences if he doesn't, the worst being that if Alex doesn't enter the pyramid in Amshire on the morning of the 7th day, he will die. This gets Alex to finally cooperate. Not long after, the O'Connells arrive in Egypt with Ardeth and Jonathan. To get around the country, they enlist the help of Izzy, an old friend of Rick who owns a hot air balloon. During the voyage, some interesting things happen. Imhotep regenerates completely and restores Anaxunamun's soul with her body. Alex tries to escape and fails, and Evelyn finds out she's the reincarnation of Seti I's daughter, Nefertiti. It is also revealed to her that her and Anaxunamun had a rivalry in their past life. Now this is an element of reincarnation I really like. I think Evie being Nefertiti is a bit more plausible than Rick being a Magi. Firstly, she's half Egyptian and has always been fascinated with Egyptology, and I think it's a really good retcon, but that's just me. As Imhotep's train is speeding through Egypt, Alex has been leaving clues for his parents at every location he was taken. Rick and Evie follow the clues, getting closer and closer to Imhotep. However, Imhotep was one step ahead. He had anticipated this and led them into a trap. Once the O'Connells catch up to Imhotep, who had found the oasis, he uses his powers to sink the hot air balloon. His attempts to kill them fail, and the O'Connells as well as Ardeth and Jonathan reunite with Alex and get into the temple before the sun rises on the 7th day. But the happy family reunion sours soon after. In a shocking twist, Anaxunamun stabs and kills Evelyn. Imhotep takes the bracelet no longer latched onto Alex, and the Scorpion King is awakened.
Oh my god, what is that?
As is Anubis' army. Luckily, Evie doesn't actually die. Jonathan and Alex bring her back with the Book of Amun-Ra after taking it from Anaxunamun. With Evie alive, the final showdown begins. Rick fights the Scorpion King and uses the Spear of Osiris to kill him, which shouldn't work since the spear only works on Egyptian monsters. Hi, this is post-editing Crespo, and I just wanted to make a point, or rather defend a point that I had made in my last video. In the last video, I had gotten pushback for saying that it was a continuity error that Matthias had been killed by the Spirit of Osiris, when that spear could only kill Egyptian monsters, and I still stand by that point. For one, being Akkadian is a big part of Matthias' character, it's just who he is. He is the last Akkadian after all. I don't think him borrowing power from an Egyptian god changed his ethnicity. I just think it was a retcon that wasn't thought out by the scriptwriters, and they kind of just forgot about it. After the death of the Scorpion King, Anaxunamun and Imhotep meet their own grisly fates. Anubis' army disappears, the pyramid collapses, and the oasis begins to crumble, and the O'Connell family and friends live to see another day. Until the next film, that is. The next and last movie of the timeline takes place in 1946, 13 years after the Scorpion King and Imhotep's demise. We see Evelyn and Rick living a domestic life in their Oxfordshire home. The couple no longer raids tombs or fights mummies, they lead a peaceful and domestic life, which is rather bland. Evie and Rick miss the adventure of the old days and they find themselves bored. This boredom is heightened because their son Alex is away at university and never seems to have time for them. But Alex isn't at university at all. He's in China, hard at work with his Professor Wilson. Both of them are trying to dig up a very important tomb. In case you haven't noticed, Alex has grown a lot since the last film. Much has changed about him, including his accent, which is no longer British. I always found that weird. Speaking of weird, it would be odd of me not to mention Evelyn's actor, Rachel Weisz, did not return for the third Mummy film. She was replaced by Maria Bello, who did alright. She was a decent Evelyn, but I can see why some people can't enjoy her character as much if they were used to Rachel Weisz. Yes, she's not the original Evelyn, and she certainly has her own spin to the character, but this is to be expected when actors are switched or replaced for roles suddenly, which is why I'm not that critical of this particular change. With that being said, any grace that I have for The Mummy 3 stops there, because it honestly boggles me a little. If I could describe this film in one word, I would say forced. It's a film that doesn't need to exist, and it's just so hard to sit through. It is so boring, and I don't know why since there are so many cool concepts. It's a shame they weren't able to execute them properly. Also, no Ardeth Bay? Yeah buddy, you lost me. Anyways, as I said before, Alex is in China with his Professor Wilson trying to look for the tomb of Emperor Han, better known as the Dragon Emperor. Alex and Wilson eventually find the entrance of the tomb and the Emperor. However, not long after, Alex is attacked by a ninja who attempts to stop them from taking the Emperor out of the tomb. The ninja's plans fail, and Alex and the Professor bring the Emperor back to Shanghai. As this is happening, Evelyn and Rick are being recruited by the British government for an espionage mission. A government official is asking them to return the Eye of Shangri-La to Shanghai. And this is how I know this film is fictional, because there's no way the British government or the British Museum would ever return any artifacts they've stolen. To the naked eye, the Eye of Shangri-La is just a Chinese artifact, but when examined closely, it contains a diamond inside, which is the key to immortality, but Evelyn and Rick are not aware of this yet. Unsurprisingly, the couple agree to the mission and travel to China, more than ready to accept adventure in their life again. We then go back to Alex, who has successfully brought the Emperor to Shanghai and is celebrating in his Uncle Jonathan's nightclub. Side note, it's nice to see Jonathan with a legitimate business, emphasis on legitimate. Jonathan congratulates Alex for finding the tomb, but also worries that his parents will be upset when they find out he is neglecting school in favor of raiding tombs. Alex assures Jonathan that his parents will not find out. Little does he know his parents are already in China, on that very night, in that very bar. Talk about bad luck. The reunion between the O'Connell family is a sour one. Alex isn't happy to see either of his parents. His parents aren't happy that he didn't tell them about his latest discovery, and he almost gets his ass beat by Rick's old associate. The reunion also shows a slight resentment that Alex has towards both of his parents, which I don't understand fully. From what I gather, Evelyn is meant to be a smothering and overbearing mother, and Rick is meant to be a stoic and frigid father. This is odd considering they weren't bad parents in the last film. I get things can change, but this feels forced for the sake of family drama. But as I was saying, Alex leaves the club rather upset and leaves his parents to argue. This is where Rick promises to get Alex back and fix everything between the three of them. Little do they know, trouble is brewing in the background. Alex wasn't the only one looking for the Emperor. In the desert near the tomb of the Emperor, we see a military outpost. It is being manned by a general named Yang. He has an army of his own and is preparing something sinister, since he not only knows that Rick and Evelyn have the Eye of Shangri-La, but he also knows that Alex has found the tomb and is keeping close tabs on him. Yang's motives are revealed later on. He wants to raise the Emperor and his army. Back to the O'Connells. Evie and Rick are in the Shanghai Museum with Alex and Professor Wilson, discussing Alex and Wilson's latest discovery. They are also ready to give up the Eye of Shangri-La, but while they are talking, Alex notices a woman sneaking around the museum and steps away from his parents to investigate. As Alex is elsewhere, Evie and Rick hand over the eye, but after doing so, Wilson turns on them and reveals he is working with General Yang. General Yang steps out of the shadow to take the eye. He then demands that Evelyn read the inscription on the eye, which is in ancient Chinese that only Evelyn can read. Evelyn reads the inscription, which states that only a pure heart can open the eye. So the general uses a drop of her blood to open the artifact and finds a diamond inside. While all of this is happening, Alex caught up with the person who was sneaking around. It turns out to be the ninja who attacked him in the desert. Her name is Lin, and she was trying to stop Alex from taking the Emperor out of his tomb. She had obviously failed, and to make matters worse now, the Emperor is resurrected.
Here we go again.
When the Emperor is brought back to life, he kills Wilson and then escapes the museum with the general, who has now sworn loyalty to him. The O'Connells, along with Lin, chase the Emperor through the streets of Shanghai, but none are able to catch him. So, the group, now with Lin, returns to Jonathan's bar and discuss what to do next. Lin drops some exposition here. She reveals that she has been watching the tomb for centuries, and now that the Emperor is back and has the Eye of Shangri-La, they are all essentially screwed. I should also drop some of my own exposition here. Shangri-La, for those who are unaware, is a fictional place located in the mountains of Tibet. In literature and movies, it's sort of like a utopia or paradise, but in The Mummy, it serves as the hiding place for the Pool of Life. The Pool of Life can only be found by the diamond inside of the Eye of Shangri-La. If the diamond is placed atop of a tower that is located in the Himalayas, the path to Shangri-La will be shown. Lin goes on to explain that she has a weapon, a dagger of sorts that is the only weapon that can kill the Emperor. She then offers to take the O'Connells to the Himalayas where the tower is located. They agree and travel via plane, but of course the General and the Emperor are following them. Lin, the O'Connells, and a few others make it to the Himalayas before the Emperor. They make camp on the mountainside for the night. During this time, Alex hovers around Lin. He attempts what I think is flirting and then starts whining when he is rejected. Now here is where I have to say something. I know I shouldn't be comparing this film to the second or the first Mummy film because that would be like comparing apples to moldy apples, but I cannot ignore the romance aspect of this film. One of the things I really appreciated about the first two Mummy films was the romance. the romance not only between Rick and Evie, but also Imhotep and Anaxunamun. Both couples had great chemistry, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but even Matthias and Cassandra from the Scorpion King were a little cute, or at least it was believable that they were attracted to each other. But with Alex and Lynn, I just don't get the same feeling. I feel as if there's no chemistry between them. Or maybe I'm just tweaking. Maybe I just don't see it. But anyway, the next morning the group finally reaches the tower. They wait for the Emperor, intending to use all their firepower to stop him. They also have a backup plan, which is to blow up the tower so the Emperor can never reach the Pool of Youth if all else fails. In addition to both plans, they possess the dagger that can kill the Emperor. So with such safety precautions, what could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, both plans fail horribly. The group uses up all their firepower, they are no closer to stopping the Emperor. In fact, he uses the diamond to show the path to Shangri-La, and the tower blows up anyway. Rick is also badly wounded during the fight. He and his family are only able to escape when Lynn summons Yetis to save them. Now it's a race against time to see who will get to Shangri-La first. The O'Connells and Lynn luckily reach Shangri-La before the Emperor. There they meet Lynn's mother, who is none other than the sorceress Zhu Yin. After escaping the Emperor, she had given birth to General Ming's child, and both her and her daughter are immortals. Zhu Yin helps the O'Connells by healing Rick and getting him to rest, but he tells the family they must prepare for the Emperor's arrival. Rick is resting, but heals soon after, and the near-death experiences causes his family to reconcile. Too bad the Emperor finds them and ruins the happy moment as he begins his attack. No one is harmed, but neither the O'Connells nor Lynn can stop the Emperor from reaching the pool. The Emperor finally gains immortality and suddenly turns into a dragon. He then abducts Lynn and flies away with her. The Emperor flies back to the general's outpost in the desert and finally raises his army as we enter the last act of the film. Lynn's mother also raises an army of her own, but in doing so relinquishes her and her daughter's immortality. During the battle, both armies fight. Alex frees Lynn, Zhu Yin is killed, and Alex is given the dagger that can kill the Emperor. In the end, it is Rick and Alex who take out the Emperor and his army. The battle is won, the O'Connells live happily ever after, and Lynn finds comfort in Alex now that her mother is gone. All is well, and that concludes the timeline of the Mummy films and the Scorpion King films. Thank you for watching my revamped timeline. I hope you enjoyed it better than the last one. For those who remember my last video, I did do a ranking at the end of the timeline. The ranking of the films pretty much stays the same for this timeline as well, however there are a few minor changes because of the additional movies. In first place is obviously the first Mummy movie, with the sequel coming in at number 2. Then there is the Scorpion King 2, the Mummy 3, the Scorpion King 3, and 4 and 5 of the Scorpion King are kind of just fighting for last place. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, it really helps the channel, as well as subscribe or share. I've been Crespo, and this is just yet another timeline video. Goodbye.